Back to my point about why Trump won, we so easily conflate being rich and wealthy with being genius. Sexual assaulter, felon, all these other things. All these things that America claims is like, we don't like criminals. You let a criminal white man be president. Smart he had to be. And also people are like, I would let this guy seduce me. I made a joke in one of my group chats. I was like, I would let him with, okay, I won't say it. This video is going to be a series of random political media observations that I've made. The end of the year is always such an interesting time because you have so much time to look ahead. So many people, especially political commentators, etc., online are kind of looking back and being like, why are these things happening? Why are we in the situation that we're in? I want to give you some random, if not totally useful reflections on certain things that have come up this year. First, the United Health CEO being pew-pewed down outside of a meeting, and the person that did it being all over the news, the New York City officials offering $10,000 in reward. There are a few different thoughts that have come out of this situation. There are a few different thoughts. But the first one, especially, is that in the US, humor will get people to hate, joke about, be unserious about the lives and safety of the elite more than anything else in the US. And there, I think, are a lot of ways that we can litmus test this. I mean, I think about the fact that when Kim Kardashian was robbed, people started making Halloween costumes based on her robbery outfit. When I was in college, I remember there was this guy in a blue hoodie that robbed a bank an hour away from my small college town in Southeast Ohio. And after this happened and the news came out, like, there's a guy in a blue hoodie, he's on the loose, like, everyone stay inside. People in my college town started wearing blue hoodies and going out to the bars and having bar crawls, bar shuffles. Like, no one fucking cared. They thought it was fucking hilarious that this guy robbed a bank. I thought it was hilarious too. At my university, I was a part of a student organization that would regularly like be aware of and protest tuition increases. And I remember my senior year, we had a black president of our university. His name was Roderick McDavis. And a big selling point for our school's kind of ethos and community when I was a tour guide was essentially I'd go on tours and say, oh, look at this house next to the student center. Like, our university president lives there. He's connected to the community. He's on campus. The president of the university, his wife's foot broke. And then also the university admitted, oh, there's bats in the house. I'm promised this story is going somewhere. There's bats in the house. We need to move him. We're going to move him to a rent to buy property. That was like 10 miles away from campus, 2 point whatever $million home. The university's raising tuition, and then they want to move him into a fucking mansion with popcorn machines and flat screen TVs and all these other things. All this news got out. Me and my friends were like, oh, word. And we ended up organizing a protest, calling it the Bat Rally, making this really funny, silly flyer of all these bats flying around and our president in front of a wall of fire. And I remember this was around the era of Facebook events still being really big. And we made a Facebook event for our rally. And there were, I think, like a couple thousand people said they would attend. We encouraged people to show up in costumes. It did kind of end up getting out of hand. A lot of people generally can understand that the wealthy hoard power, but to have an opportunity to poke fun at the wealthy, to make light of them, to laugh at their expense, I think is something that can be a very American value. And I mean American, not in like, I'm patriotic. I just mean like Americans are silly almost to like a fault, like in a way where it's like we will laugh ourselves into the hellscape, which I think a lot of people have done. And a health situation, the fact that everyone online basically is like, no one is going to snitch on this guy. Like, no one fucking wants that money. $10,000 isn't even that much to offer someone. People are like theorizing like how smart he had to be. And also people are like, I would let this guy come at me. I would let him. People are like, I would let this guy seduce me. I made a joke in one of my group chats. I was like, I would let him with, okay, I won't say it. And so I do think there is a lot of opportunity to look at the ways that we can critique the elite and the rich and the powerful through a lens of humor. Even when like 2020 rolled around and the lockdown happened and a bunch of celebrities were singing Imagine all the people living wild and free. Imagine there's an end to wealth and we don't have to have celebrities marketing to us how we survive during times of crisis. I think there's a lot to be gleaned from this situation, but I think it is very entertaining for me to see people expressing anti-elite sentiments. How can we organize and operate and engage with each other socially in a way that encourages more anti-elite joking consciousness? How can we look at this situation as a barometer for where the US public is in terms of our relation to the elite? This brings me to my next point in terms of class consciousness and the opportunities in this situation. I do think class consciousness, as revealed through this United Health CEO situation, is one of the biggest signifiers around the cynicism and the opportunities for increased cynicism around the oncoming Trump administration. Yesterday, I did an interview with It's Going Down podcast, and in preparation for that, I was researching a bit about Trump's cabinet, and I came up, I saw a headline that said the folks in his cabinet combined are worth over $300 billion. $300 billion. $300 billion. Three $300 billion. That's more people than on the planet. Like the fact that Amazon CEOs, fucking Dr. Oz, Elon Musk, it's literally wild to think about, but the synchronicity of this CEO, what happened to him, and then also this oncoming administration kind of peddling this like trickle down economics kind of thought where it's like, oh, we're going to do tariffs and we're going to do this and we're going to do that and it's going to help the economy and we're going to help the middle class. Like, since when do rich people tell the truth about how they're going to help poor people? Since when do wealthy men in America do things to genuinely help the public? One of my theories about why Trump won and why his side of the aisle is so attractive and why it just makes sense is I think with the way that social media and the whole influencer kind of economy and calling yourself a brand and calling your art content instead of art, there is this shift in the digital mainstream to turn our social and creative productions into things that are literally like content, literally for business, literally products. While we have a shrinking livable wage in the mainstream, while we have increased saturation on social media platforms, while people are calling their social media pages their content, their brands instead of their honest social expression, and all of this being towards earning money, monetization, the influencer economy, the fact that so many young people are like thinking about dreaming about being YouTubers, influencers. I don't think this hunger for a very individualistic kind of business oriented approach to expressing ourselves online is that far off from also how younger folks, younger men are more increasingly online, how this notion of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps can easily be also mixed in with I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. Look at the platform I have. Look at how much money I have. There's just so many interesting things wrapped up in a country and an economy where so many people have to hope for self-employment or side gigs or the ability to like make a side income online. While Americans are even struggling towards that ephemeral digital dream, we also have we have men entering the next Trump administration who are worth over $300 billion, who are spouting trickle down economics. And back to my point about why Trump won, I think in the U.S. we so easily conflate being rich and wealthy with being genius. A man like Kanye West, rich, is considered a genius by many, is also a Nazi. Trump has many failed businesses, has histories of institutionalized racism in the different businesses he's been a part of, sexual assaulter, felon, all these other things. All these things that America claims is like, we don't like criminals. You let a criminal white man be president because he's rich. And I think in the years to come, there is going to be a great need to distinguish what class consciousness is in the digital age, what class consciousness is in these new forms of American centered economics, in these new forms of authoritarianism. Like, I do think so many people in the US equate wealth with genius. And that is going to be something that we have to argue against. We have to argue against this kind of individualized idea of success where if I get rich, that means I probably did things right and I know how other people should try to live. And instead, we need to turn towards a collectivism that looks at mutual aid, that looks at sharing resources, that looks at the ways that the elite not only hoard resources and the the modes of production, they also hoard the profits and the wages and the things that can be shared amongst the masses, the proletariat, and they don't. And this is why this whole United Health CEO situation is very clear to a lot of people because the US has had a long-standing history of using the healthcare system to disenfranchise poor people, sick people, to peddle a kind of structural ableism. Moving forward, we have to find both the digital and non-digital space to be serious both about how we can joke about what happens to the elite, but also articulating the numbers, the specifics, the ramifications of having a US government and political figures and increased fascism that is dependent upon corporations having more power than people. And what this will mean, what this will lead to, I think involves so many things. And we have to find alternative forms of sharing space and talking about these more radical ways of thinking about the economic system that we live under, more radical ways of engaging class consciousness and building a space where we can say, yeah, fuck the rich. The emergence of the failure of Western identity politics under neoliberalism is one of the main reasons to me why Kamala lost. One of the biggest things that I saw during Kamala's campaign was the Democratic kind of call to see this figure as a savior. And I also saw how that combined and fit into this kind of maternalizing narrative that is forced onto Black women. Like, there are nurturers, they will save us. Like, all of the videos of Kamala, like, hugging people and saying, it's going to be okay. Like, blah, 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 it's going to be okay. Like, we're not going back. Felt very racially coded to me in some underlying ways. And this is a kind of complicated statement because I do also acknowledge that Kamala did kind of brush aside talking about certain aspects of identity and race, like saying like, "Oh, I have to win everyone's vote," and even the way she didn't come so hard for like immigrants and like all of the shit about xenophobia. Like, I feel like she could have come a lot harder about a lot of those things. But I think a lot of people wanted a Black woman to save them, wanted a woman to save them. And this isn't to say that I don't think women should be in positions of responsibility and like organizations and government or whatever. I generally like I don't like our government as it stands. I don't think we really have like a fair system anyway. So like being like there needs to be a Black woman in our very unfair system. That's not what I'm arguing towards. I think a lot of what people wanted a woman, a Black woman to save them, and how there's a failure in that kind of logic, the kind of maternalizing that the Democratic Party kind of tried to sell us on Harris when in reality, I'm like, she was a prosecutor. She was an attorney general. Like, she was laughing about locking up people for marijuana. Like, there are discrepancies in her track record, even if she can be considered like a, what do people want us to call Kamala? Like a Democrat that will bend towards the whims of genocide is a part of the failures of identity politics. And I mean this on either side of the aisle. Like, in order for Kamala to kind of win over other folks that kind of are more deeply politically aligned in terms of what the US and US colonization is capable of, what Kamala maybe would have needed to do was to assert her uniqueness in terms of her identity, the positionality that allows her to have in terms of critiquing the patriarchy, white supremacy, US militarism. But that would also require a much more dynamic and complex political version of Kamala Harris. And so there's that. And then I think on the other side of the aisle, the failure of identity politics has led people to kind of once again be like, you know what's going to help us, our country? You know it's not going to be that bad? Like a rich white man being in office. Like, that won't be that bad, right? Failure to demand that this maternal Black figure sweep in and save us and can offer us all this care and bring us back to a kind of new normal. Like, that was in Kamala Harris's campaign a lot. Like, we're never going back. We're never going back. We can't go back, but the only way is forward. Like, we can't just sell ourselves a refracted version of a previous status quo and then suddenly claim that it's like progress. Like, this isn't progress. Now we're kind of fucked because there's a rich Indian guy who's gonna be up there in Trump's cabinet with Elon Musk, and he's from Ohio, and him being POC just almost makes it work. A woman of color and wanting to be the face of US imperialism makes it worse for me. But for other people, it's like, oh, I have a sigh of relief. Even in the assumed experiences of our identities, we do need to have deeper conversations around what is our vision of change, what is our end goal, and what are the tactics we're willing to deploy to get there. And that point actually leads into my next 2024 observation. Here's a question. Here's a question. Are anarchists part of the left? Are anarchists even a part of the left? I especially have been thinking about it because when I was away over this past month doing aid work, and it was the day before election day. Me and other folks were talking about, like, what do we think is going to happen? Who's going to win? Blah, blah, blah. One of the other people I was living with was like, oh, I think this is happening because the left is disorganized. And I really had to think. I really had to think. I was like, am I part of that left? And there are many layers to this opinion. And I don't mean this to come off as like, oh yeah, anarchists, we know what the fuck we're doing, fuck all these other people. I don't mean it from that way. Because I do think there is a certain way that I can, like, people can be like, I'm not a part of the left. That left over there. I do think we all have to be self-critical. And I do think there are ways that certain aspects of the left are disorganized in terms of defending and preserving a version of America that can make people feel like there's a better status quo. And what I mean is, like, I don't think that the left that is against colonization and is against American militarism and all this fuckery that Republicans or Democrats or fucking people that are centrists, liberals, whatever, progressives can spew and push and peddle in order to further these notions of making a better America. Basically, okay, here's what I'm saying. I think there's the left that believes that we can make America a better place, and that should be ultimately our end goal. And I think there's the far left that believes fuck America. And in the election cycle, I think there are so many ways that we conflate both of those portions of the left. And I think what is revealed to me again and again in every election cycle is like, I can vibe with people that want abolition. I can vibe with people that want land back. I can vibe with people that want healthcare for all or reproductive rights or fucking equal and conscious education. I do think there is this kind of difficulty in organizing where we might have the same kind of medium term end goal, but if our long term end goal is different, where are the points of diversion? And the reason this left kind of question is so complicated, the reason like are anarchists a part of the left is that as long as I've been an organizer, especially being black, there are so many times where I will be in black spaces. And because I say, fuck politicians, fuck the government, like people need to burn this shit down, fuck the elite, like these are things that a lot of people believe, including anarchists. When I've said that in certain black political spaces, people will look at me like, oh my God, like that is, oh my gosh, you said that? That's so uncivil. It always irks me because what I really think is like, isn't it reasonable for black people, for poor people to, for BIPOC people to be like, this government and the project of Americanism is fucking nuts. And like, what do you mean you want me to engage with it in good faith? What do you mean you want me to fight for a better version of America? I think the general kind of definition I have for being a part of the left is are people that have progressive social and political beliefs that try to lessen the damage of what the state is capable of. And that can involve a lot of different things. That can involve a lot of different things. That could involve wanting a more innocent victim before you help them. That can involve certain ideologies around pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. That can involve wanting to protect what the US has and not wanting people to take it away. And it can also involve like really powerful, progressive, and meaningful and conscious political like ways of organizing and thinking that are generally towards liberation. The distinction that takes it further beyond that sort of central leftism is the ability to critique the structures and the base functions of what the US and government as we know it is capable of. To want a better world for black people where we aren't targeted by police, but also to understand that institutional racism and white supremacy are literally the reason that police and prison systems exist. And how can America exist without police and prison systems, to want rights for everyone, gay rights, right to privacy, like a fair process of immigration, even the notion of immigration and borders. We can want an a fair system of people being able to seek refuge and asylum, and there not being a whole economy around detention. But then we have to ask ourselves, should borders even exist? What what political ideology or history necessitated the notion of borders in the first place? And how does a belief in a better border or a more humane border also reinforce the legitimacy of the US as a state in general? There's a version of the left that wants to make America better, and there's a version of the left that's like, fuck all of this, it shouldn't even exist. That to me is a very important distinction, and that is a distinction that I kind of am wondering how I hold central when I'm organizing with people, because I do think in the next coming years, there's going to be a struggle between folks on the left that want to organize towards having a better next administration versus folks that are like, I want to organize us out of having to rely on the government at all. And where you fall in those two camps, I think, says a lot about your level of antagonism towards the state, towards the US. Anti-repression work moving forward will have to be both above ground and below ground. Legal defense networks, it means bail funds, mutual aid funds, emotional support for people that are facing legal repression and trial and charges. I mean, safe houses, sanctuary networks, churches, cities, locations where sensitive populations are understood to be there. Folks know how to protect them. People that do things that aren't so legal, having the network and resources in their communities and beyond to evade state capture. I think the above ground work will be necessary in terms of there being a visible legal fight and battle against the policies that are going to be passed, the bills that are going to be presented, the things that are going to be happening on a local level. I do think there need to be challenges presented on a legal level to continue to fight for a more humanizing precedent in terms of the bills, policies, things that are being passed. I also think function of the state and political parties in the US, whether it be Democrats or Republicans, literally operates to uphold the status quo. J20 was able to happen for a reason. Activists during 2020 were able to be targeted and jailed, locked away very seriously for these same reasons of repression. The border and the way that Border Patrol restrict movement and force people into more dangerous corridors, and how anti-humane our system of carcerality is there. All of these are forms of repression under this larger umbrella of state power, of militarism, of carcerality. Like, I view carcerality as a form of repression. In a new chapter of Trump authoritarianism and fascism, where from a Dr. King logic, we will have to be more aware of the unjust laws that we are facing, and we will have to be willing to resort to civil disobedience in order to protest those unjust laws. And as John Lewis would say, like, fight for good trouble, blah, blah, blah. There does need to be an above ground system where people are literally physically opposing the things that the government is doing through civil disobedience, and how important it is for there to be mass movements and mobilization that work towards building out the legal defense systems for that. But there also will need to be like systems where we like defend and support people that aren't doing like the nonviolent direct action. The more that dissent will be criminalized, the more people will have to be used to the notion of being a criminal for standing up for their human rights, for defending their communities, for like building systems of community care. And this is where the underground argument comes in. It's like, if you literally have a government that is just passing unjust law after unjust law after unjust laws, taking away your rights, do you stop doing things to ensure your own survival because it's illegal or legal? What kind of considerations or questions or thoughts do you have in that process? It will have to look like connecting with relevant organizations. It will have to look like communities coming together on a regular social basis and building trust. And then also figuring out what is their capacity in terms of building resources, food, shelter, connected networks of movement lawyers that can help people who are facing different kinds of charges, support for folks that are locked up. Who's going to write them? Who's going to put money on their commissary? And then in the underground aspect, let's say you have a comrade that is being targeted for something that is related to an action that may or may not have happened. How can this person be brought to a safe place? How can people that are literally facing raids and deportation evade state surveillance, evade state capture? How can that be the result of legitimate and grassroots community organizing? These are all really serious things that I think we have to consider moving forward, especially with kind of the idea and thought out there that we shouldn't expect another election necessarily in 4 years. Like, if authoritarianism and totalitarianism is the name of the game, build those above ground networks, build those underground networks. I hate when people call the things that they post online content. Oh, I have to work on my content. I have to work on my content. Oh, I need to shoot some content. I need to come up with more content. The shift from art and media to content is very, very interesting to me. It's very interesting to me because being an influencer was seen as like more vapid, not a sort of economic model for people to pay their bills or whatever. I think it was seen as more lowbrow. And the shift towards calling the things that we post online content or brand or all the other fucking terms, it's turning our social and life expressions into a business. And when something becomes a business, it becomes more legitimate. It becomes something that people are strategizing around. It becomes something that is respectable in terms of what it is contributing to society. I think the language is a signifier of people demanding that shift because the economics around content creation have changed and shifted. And like now there's micro influencers and video podcasts and video platforms. And did y'all hear TikTok is being shut down? Don't think the words have ever come out of my mouth. I'm a content creator. I make content. I have to work on my content. Like literally for the videos I make on this channel, I call them videos or video essays or a topical exploration. I don't fucking call it content because I'm like, content, it doesn't make sense to me. And calling your personal social media page or pages a brand, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs in a certain way. What do you mean your brand? Like, you mean how you show up in the world as a brand? I think it genuinely confuses me because if I, like, here's a copy of my book. Hi, do you want to read my content? This is not, this is a book. This is art. When you post a photo online, that is a photograph. When you post a video online, it's a video. It's a form of artwork. And I do get it. Like there are categories and stratifications around the different categories of content that we post online. Making media for the sake of earning ad dollars, etc. There is a certain kind of business relationship. Art under the model of capitalism has always been monetizable. So what is it about social media that turns it from art into content? I think that is the question. That is the question. And if y'all have any thoughts, leave it in the comments. Because honestly, like the more I think about this, the more I'm like, I think I need to make a longer video about this and to talk about the shifting economics of how we relate to social expression and the human being online. If we are turning our social media accounts and our forms of social expression and art into content that is for the purpose of influencing or ad dollars or providing video or B-roll or whatever to corporations, what is the role of honest human expression online? What is the role of propaganda? Can content also be propaganda? I don't know. I don't know. I wanted to share some random thoughts from my humble abode with my Christmas tree. Isn't it beautiful? All of the folks that have been watching my channel and taking my videos this year, it means so much to me to be building a space where folks can engage critically about politics, about Black history, about writing. And I want to continue to be really whimsical and disciplined, continue to have fun on this channel. Like, I think there's a lot of work to be done in the Black media space, especially the Black radical media space. And I want to be one of many voices that are contributing to Black folks talking about decolonization, Black folks talking about being antagonistic towards the police, Black folks talking about being in deep solidarity with other movements, because I do think a part of where Black folks especially can go wrong is being invested in a better version of America, as opposed to understanding that America is literally the reason that we went through slavery. Come 2025, there's a lot of things that I want to do on this channel. I definitely want to do a lot more James Baldwin videos. I definitely want to do more I tried Blank Writer's writing routine videos. I'm cooking up a Maya Angelou video, slowly doing research. The Direct Action 101 series is going to be this, and I'm really excited to interview folks, talk to people, gain different perspectives, and really use that series as an educational resource that can be offered to people. Like, I don't see it as like, this is where you need to go for everything, but I do think we need spaces online where people can genuinely engage with the idea of how do you look at the tactics that are out there and what can apply to your local environments. I really, really hope folks are taking care of themselves. I think in the next weeks, months, years, community is going to be important. Taking care of yourselves, looking out for other people, showing up, doing the first steps of what does it mean to come together as a community and think about what kind of changes we want to have happen. That's going to be endlessly important in the years to come. Thank you for watching my channel throughout 2024. Thank you for supporting the different videos that I've done. Thank you for engaging honestly and critically in the comments. And yeah, let me know what you want to see in 2025. See you later.
Okay.